방송 광고, 경제에 큰 힘이 됩니다. 부산 방송광고발전협의회.
The time is now 7 o'clock.
I feel the zeal already. Well, South Korea's education zeal has spread to early childhood education. And we now have terms like, 4세고시. I mean, 4 years old toddlers who are studying to get into, elite kindergartens and private academies, or getting into a private academy to get into an elite kindergarten. We understand that this stems from good intentions on the part of parents to make sure their children are ahead of the curve. But what about the mental and emotional toll this may take? There is this term, 인성교육, building character. So are we as a society missing out on this character building education amid all of this academic fervor? Is a question I want to ask to all of us. I'm Catherine. This is Morning Wave in Busan on Wednesday, March 19th on BEFM 부산영어방송. Good morning to all the wavers today. And if you're tuning in on our YouTube stream, in our chat room, we have a new number 1 today. So a shout out to Kim Dongjin Waver. And also I see Kim Sung-han Waver joining us as well. So welcome to our program. And that's what I was talking about, that zeal, that fervor. I love it. Thank you so much for being so enthusiastic in the morning at like 7 a.m. How amazing is this? And the thing is this fervor really parlays into education here in Korea. You know this, right? South Korean children are some of the most highly and perhaps intensely educated in the world. The government recently released the first ever survey on early childhood private education, with almost half of the children under the age of 6 in some form of private classes. Question is this: how effective is this early childhood education? According to a government-affiliated research institute, there were some positive effects of private education at such an early age, but not as much as parents had hoped for. First up, researchers surveyed the short-term impact of private education across some 70 first graders and found that their private classes did not have an impact on their language skills and problem-solving skills. There were some merits to physical education classes like sports or dance. And those who enrolled in these classes showed higher levels of diligence and sympathy and empathy, as well as a lower likelihood of suffering from attention deficit. However, the downsides may be greater than the benefits, especially when it came to things like their emotional well-being. We're talking about 정서적 효과, meaning what are we gaining and what are we losing on the other hand? Children with longer and more frequent private classes showed higher levels of anxiety and aggression. And children who were in these like really intensive academic classes like math or English showed lower levels of self-esteem. Experts say that during these early formative years, naturally acquiring skills, 습득, this is how kids learn, not kind of ramming it down their throats is the point. We all want the best for our kids, do we not? I get it. I really do understand. But it might be time to rethink what is truly best for our kids. Not just like our personal kids, but kids generally as a society. That is our main theme for today. And our text topic is related to our top story that I just relayed to you. So here we go. While we're talking about character building, what values did your parents instill in you? Okay. I'm sure they instilled so many good things in you, but what values or behaviors do you emphasize for your kids if you have kids? 자, 인성 교육에 대해서 이야기를 해볼 건데요. 부모님이 나에게 강조했던 가르침, 그리고 과거형도 아니고 지금 아직도 많이 들으실 거예요. 그리고 내가 아이에게 강조하는 덕목은 what is it that you really want your kids to learn? So I thought about this. I've talked about the golden rule in our family, treat others as you want to be treated. This has kind of been brainwashed, ingrained into my kids since they were like babies. Every day before we go to bed, we have this very short family time. This is aside from dinner talk and the dinner table discussions. Before they go to bed, we get together, and we talk about, our daily happenings. And then that's how we end it with always treat others as you want to be treated. And another one that I feel like I learned from my parents, especially my dad. My dad was is such a compassionate person. He always, instilled in me, in Korean, he would say, 준아야. And he would say, 준아야, be compassionate towards others. And to me, I feel like, this is an important life lesson. And this is something I try to practice in my daily life. Not successful every single day, but I try to keep that in the back of my head, to be compassionate toward others. So I'm sure you have lots to share with us. And maybe it comes in the form of 잔소리로 들릴 수도 있지만 네, 가르침이 분명히 있을 거라고 생각합니다. Send in your messages to BFM's live stream, live chat on YouTube. We are streaming live, as many of you know, but if you don't know, now you know. You can listen at your leisure later on. Go to the YouTube platform, search for BEFM or 부산영어방송 to find our channel. Click on it and join in on the lively discussion there. On your phone, pound 9050, shop 9050. That's going to cost you 100 won. And, by the way, speaking of like messages, yesterday we got a message with like a photo of a really snowy morning. And yesterday, oh gosh, in Busan, it did snow, right? Did you guys see it? Sorry, I just wanted to mention that before I forgot. Also, through Kakao Talk, absolutely free to send in your messages. You go to the Kakao Talk, and then, search for BEFM in 친구 찾기, add us, and you're good to go as well. The ways you can listen to our program, 90.5, 103.3 FM on the radio if you're in Busan. Like I said, we're streaming live on YouTube right now. You can watch again later. And we have two apps, the BEFM app and the Papang app. The latter, you can listen to our Wagger Wagger segment. Looking ahead to our morning together. So we have Leon with In the Now. In hour number 2, Jennifer with Skills 101. And for our special interview, I love this idea of savoring relationships. So what do I mean by savoring? It means to really enjoy, be in the moment, to get the most out of your relationships, whether it's through work or your personal ones. We're going to talk about this in hour number 2. And I'll be back with today's headlines. It's now 7:08. These are today's headlines. Acting U.S. envoy says sensitive country listing, not a big deal. The designation of South Korea as a sensitive country by the United States was due to mishandling of sensitive information and is not a big deal, said the acting U.S. ambassador to South Korea yesterday. Constitutional Court finishes Justice Minister's impeachment hearing. The Constitutional Court wrapped up oral arguments from both sides in just 2 hours during yesterday's first and final hearing of the impeachment trial for Justice Minister Park Sung-jae. Prosecutors seek arrest warrant for 2 presidential security officials. prosecutors had filed for warrants to arrest 2 senior officials of the Presidential Security Service, PSS, accused of obstructing investigators' attempt to detain impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol. Gaza ceasefire shattered as Israel kills hundreds of Palestinians. Over 400 people died after the Israeli military launched a wave of airstrikes over Gaza, shattering the fragile ceasefire. Putin agrees to temporarily stop strikes on Ukrainian energy infrastructure. Russian President Vladimir Putin agreed to stop strikes on Ukraine energy targets for 30 days after a lengthy phone call from U.S. President Donald Trump. And these are today's headlines. It's time for Busan Updates. We have Sue in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yay. So before we get into our updates, let's talk about anything that you may have heard from your parents when it comes to developing good character. What did you hear from your parents?
Well, I was a really well-disciplined child.
Oh, is that so? Can I check? Can I verify with your parents? 부모님이랑
Maybe one day.
통화될까요?
Okay. The importance of love was emphasized when I was little, because all of my aunties, uncles, and my parents and my grandparents were like, "Oh, you were the most beloved child because you were the first baby born." So I was like, "Okay, so I've got so much love, so I gotta love back."
Ooh, so do you have a lot of love to share? Do you think?
It depends on my mood, I think. I tried to be good. And also, they told me that I was very independent. 혼자서도 잘하니까 잘할 거야. It kind of ingrained in my brain.
Yes.
So it kind of helped me when I was in Canada.
Because you were on your own.
Yeah.
Oh, that's important though. All right. Thanks for sharing. Let's get into our first update. The Busan Metropolitan Office of Education announced that starting this year, the free 늘봄 school program has been expanded, and this is going to include 1st to 3rd grade elementary school students, correct?
This program combines and improves existing after-school care and activities, providing a more comprehensive system to support students both before and after regular classes. And there are 2 main types of support. Care, 돌봄, 늘봄, which provides safe child care services from morning until evening, and learning, 학습형 늘봄, which includes free educational programs to help ease the burden on parents. And starting this year, the program is free for all 1st to 3rd graders and is available in 3 ways. And since March last year, Busan became the first in the country to offer the 늘봄 school program free of charge for 1st grade elementary students.
Right, and I hear this is really popular among the parents. So this year, I also hear that the number of schools that have this has been expanded as well, right?
Yes. The 늘봄 exclusive schools, which operate separately from regular schools, were opened in Nambumin, Jeongwan, and Yunsan, aside from the first school, Myeongji. And earlier I said the program is offered in 3 formats.
Right.
First one is school-based 늘봄. It is available in all elementary schools, and any 1st to 3rd grader can join. And community-based 늘봄 includes 24-hour emergency care centers for children who need urgent support on top of childcare and learning options. And 늘봄 exclusive schools are dedicated to after-school activities.
Yes. Well, hopefully this will help even more families out there. So thank you for telling us about this. Next up, let's talk about Namgu District, which has become the first in the country to enact an ordinance supporting genetic testing costs. So tell us about this.
So this is for pregnant women at risk of genetic disorders. And this new ordinance covers genetic testing costs for embryos and fetuses. An embryo is an unborn baby up to 8 weeks of development.
Okay.
And fetus is 태아, which is an unborn baby inside the womb at 9 weeks after fertilization.
I see.
And if the pregnant woman or her spouse has a genetic disorder or a family history of one, genetic testing helps predict potential hereditary diseases in babies and allows for early treatment planning. But the costs can be extremely high.
Yes.
So sometimes reaching millions of won per test. It is a significant financial burden. And in 2022, Busan accounted for about 5% of all newly reported rare disease cases in Korea, and yet no local governments, including Busan itself, had any financial support for genetic testing until now.
Right. So I think this is great, the policy for people who might need this. So thanks for telling us about this one. All right, next. This 문명석 stone from the 인생문 Gate in 동래읍성, the fortress there, is returning to 동래구 district after 46 years. I read it. I don't know what it is.
Yes.
So you need to give us the details. What is this?
So first, 문명석 is a historic marker and a stone that served as the nameplate for the 인생문 Gate.
Okay.
And 인생문 Gate is one of the gates of 동래읍성.
Yes.
And 동래읍성 is a historic fortress built during the Joseon Dynasty, and it is designated as a Busan City Monument. And 인생문 Gate is believed to have been built in 1735 during the reign of King Yeongjo. And the gate became famous for the legend that anyone who took refuge there during the Imjin War, 임진왜란, survived, which is why it's called the Gate of Life.
I see.
And
Yes.
another theory suggests that the gate got its name because it was where the funeral processions of those who died inside the fortress would exit, symbolizing the fleeting nature of life. 그래서 죽은 사람이 문을 통해서 나갈 때 약간 인상무상을 느끼게 한다라고
I see.
합니다.
Okay.
And by the way, Imjin War is a Japanese invasion of Korea from 1592 to 1598.
That's right. So historical, right? So, excuse me. For those of us joining us on our YouTube channel, you might have seen a still of it, a photo of it. So, but we want more details about the stone itself.
The stone is a rectangular granite slab, and Chinese characters 인생문 are carved into the stone, and it disappeared during the Japanese colonial period, but was rediscovered in 1979 during construction near 동래읍성, and it was donated to the Busan Museum. And it has been on display at the museum's outdoor exhibition area since,
Right.
and now it will be moved to the underground first floor exhibition hall at the district office. And the stone will now be temporarily loaned to 동래구 district, with the loan lasting until the end of this year. And it plans to extend it, the district plans to extend it yearly. And it will be displayed along with other artifacts found during the construction of the new district office.
Yes.
And the district mayor mentioned that the stone is a proud symbol of Dongnae's history and culture for its residents.
I see. Well, thank you for kind of this history lesson as well. Let's move on to our last bit of news. Busan is offering cash back excuse me, for card payments at good price stores. So first of all, tell us what good price stores are, and then why is Busan offering cash back?
So good price stores are 착한가격업소. To boost the local economy and promote consumption, the city is enhancing its good price store initiative, and they plan to increase the number of stores to 750 by the end of this year. And there are currently 690 good price stores in Busan, mostly restaurants, but there are also beauty salons, bathhouses, and laundromats. To promote these stores, Busan is offering discounts through credit card companies, with customers getting 2,000 won cashback on purchases over 10,000 won.
Yes.
And support for the stores has increased this year, with funds rising from 580 million won, 5억 8천만 원, to 730 million won, 7억 3천만 원. And the money is used for things like supplies, utility bill help, and improving the stores. And the city is also using social media and local websites to spread the word, and good price stores are listed on maps like Naver and Kakao for easy access.
All right. Well, thank you so much for all the Busan updates, and we'll be sure to check in with you tomorrow as well. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
And now we're going to get to your traffic and weather waivers. is now 7:19. Here's your traffic report right now. There is some congestion detected on the Dongso overpass from Bumnagor ramp to the old Kegum toll gate. Also heavily congested on Mandakdero from Minam intersection to Mandak intersection. It's also slow moving on Haeundae-ro from Wondong interchange to the Olympic intersection. And there is also some traffic on Gwangnam-no between the KBS 3-way intersection and the Dongbang 5-way intersection, once again in both directions. Currently, it is -1 degree Celsius here in Busan under clear skies. However, there are some strong winds. The daytime high is expected to go up to 9 degrees Celsius. Elsewhere across the country, this is the last day of this spring cold snap. With light flurries coming down in parts of Jeolla and Jeju, the daytime high will go up to 6 to 10 degrees Celsius, of course, depending on where you are. This was your traffic and weather.
Are you an early bird? Are you up to date on the news? Are you a trendsetter? For all of the biggest issues from Busan to the world and useful information you need, right here on Morning Wave in Busan.
It's time for News Digest. We have Haley here. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Wavers. Good morning, PD님. Because this is one of, sorry, and you're like, why? Because this is one of my parents' teachings. Yeah. 인사 잘해라. 안녕하세요.
Oh, speaking of insa, let me read this one real first.
Yeah.
고수, 저희 어머니께서도 명료하게 강조하신 가르침이 있어요. 공부를 못하면 인사라도 잘해라. 인성 교육 맞죠?
Yeah, of course.
인사 잘하는 거.
No, it's more important, honestly, because, you and I both teach.
Yes.
Have you noticed, like, in about a decade ago, when we go into the classroom, good morning, 안녕하세요, and they're like, oh, 안녕하세요. And now, good morning, 안녕하세요.
I call it side effects from COVID.
Yeah.
I want to call it
it's
that.
long COVID.
It's so long COVID because, like,
Such
as you
long
say, but then there are certain students, they learned right. Even in the hallways, like I'm looking at my phone, walking to my next class, and I'm like barely looking up. But obviously, I'm not a student, so like random students, they still do like the
배꼽 인사?
the 배꼽 인사, and I always feel like I always feel like so embarrassed. I'm
but
like,
it's
okay.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the fact that they don't even know me. I probably don't have them as a student, but they're going out of their way to show respect. So I try to do the same. I'm going to put the phone down and walk around like smiling to everybody.
Right.
Like, 안녕. Yeah, I don't know about that, but yeah.
인사 is so important.
It
Greeting
is.
people, saying hello and goodbye. And
anything else?
Responding. Oh, yeah, many. My parents.
One more.
Oh, fine. My parents said, leave another person's home cleaner or at least as clean as you found it.
Oh.
So I do always do that. Interestingly, I don't think they imparted that knowledge about our own home because I'm super messy. So I do follow directions.
그때 사진 있나요?
아이고.
Anyways, we'll look for it, yes. So that's a good one.
That is a good one.
Yeah, it definitely is. Well, we're going to dive into our first news item. We're waiting, of course, on the Constitutional Court to rule on President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment, right?
But when? Is the big question because the Constitutional Court justices have been deliberating nonstop ever since oral arguments ended last month. And the court yesterday, and we were all waiting on it, did not announce a verdict date. So now there's a possibility that if they don't announce it this week, it might get pushed again to next week. This, by the way, is already the longest deliberation period out of all three presidents' impeachment trials.
Yes. So We need to know why. Why is it taking so long?
Right. First is the when, second is the why. Well, that's because President Yoon Suk-yeol's side presented these mounting arguments against the National Assembly's impeachment motion, not only the motion itself, but the procedures.
Yes.
And the president himself defended himself on the stand multiple times. So experts say that this is justices basically not wanting to leave any flaws in the procedure because the defense has been quite particular with this. So former Constitutional Court Justice told the press that judging from what he or she saw, the verdict likely already has been made. It's just that justices are discussing basically every single sentence that would go in the ruling, leaving no stone unturned, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. By the way, as this is going on, protests are continuing. Usually they only take place during the weekend, but it is continuing into the weekday around Anguk Station and Gwanghwamun Square as well. The police in the meantime, they've announced that they're going to clear basically a vacuum around the court in preparation for the ruling, and they're doing ID checks, creating more of these entry restricted zones.
Indeed. So the country is awaiting. It's also been over a year since the trainee doctors walk out, and the state of emergency medicine, especially with first responders, is stretched very thin.
Right. So we often talk about the situation inside the hospitals, but even getting to said hospital, especially the emergency rooms or ERs, has been difficult.
Yes.
So first, let me give you some numbers first, and these are released by Democratic Party lawmaker Kim Yoon. In the past year, specifically the period of February to July, the number of serious patients sent to regional ER, so basically bounced around from local hospitals to the regional ER, has come to 42.9 for every 1,000 people.
Right.
That's up by 7.2 compared to the same period the previous year. And the number of these emergency patients who died at these regional emergency room and emergency centers increased by 1.6 as well.
Right.
So first responders say that the situation is so tense and precarious because they're looking for, and not only looking for, but basically begging for hospitals to take their patients.
Yes.
So the Union of Firefighters and First Responders spoke at the National Assembly this week about this so-called hot potato for emergency rooms, or colloquially called 응급실 뺑뺑이 situation.
Yes.
So the head of the emergency at Seoul's union, Kim Sung-hyun, first said that the figures that we see are actually vastly underreported.
Right.
Why? Because what happens is when the first responders cannot get an ER to take these patients, and if the patients are deemed to be in moderate condition, so not critical, the first responder would notify the patient that they cannot take them to an emergency room. So 이송 불가. These 이송 불가 cases, they do not go down as 이송 불가, but they are on paper written down as dealt with on the scene. 현장 처치됨.
Really?
So it's dealt with because the patient basically gave up on going to the ER.
Oh, goodness.
So for serious or critical cases, for example, a woman in her 30s recently in Cheongju, she fell into a state of cardiac arrest. Her heart stopped, 심정지. But she was, or the first responders were turned down from 22 hospitals. And they had to take her 100 kilometers away to Gyeonggi. Once again, cardiac arrest.
I can't even fathom that happening. Let's say to someone.
To a family member
someone
or
you know.
yourself. Right.
Right. Anyhow, didn't the government allocate funding and resources to solve situations like this?
They did. So to be fair, the government injected 1.5 trillion won to support the emergency medical system, but situation has not gotten much better. So there is additional staff from the extra money, but apparently a lack of a clear information disclosure system on ER availability. So there are these basically real-time screens from first responders and 119 situation rooms, but apparently the numbers may not always be accurate. And this hot potato system is basically 119 responders calling every single hospital, playing phone tag and being rejected and calling a different hospital. So they called for a more accurate and real-time system.
Yes, definitely seems to be needed. All right, for now, we're going to move on to some international issues. Israel has broken the ceasefire and began attacks on Gaza. And the big question people might be asking is, Why?
Right. So as you covered in headlines, at least 400 people died and 600 more are injured. And this is according to the Hamas-run health ministry.
That's right.
So going back to the ceasefire, why was it broken? What was it? So this was a multi-part ceasefire. Right now, we're in a period between phase 1 and what was supposed to be phase 2.
Yes.
So phase 1 of the ceasefire had a partial release of hostages, the Israeli hostages held by Hamas, in exchange for Palestinian prisoners being released by Israel and also Israel allowing aid into Gaza. So after phase 1 ended and during phase 1, Hamas and Israel were supposed to begin negotiations for phase 2, which included releasing all remaining hostages and Israel withdrawing fully. But they've been stuck between phase 1 and phase 2 since March 1st.
Yes.
So at this point, Israel has gone back on the deal, and they demanded release of all hostages and withheld aid. So this much needed aid has been stopped.
Okay.
And this position has been backed by the Donald Trump administration. So pundits say basically Israel is trying to have its cake and eat it too, which means in Korean, 두 마리 토끼를 다 잡는다. And these two sides, meaning they have two goals, return of all hostages, but also getting rid of Hamas. However, because Hamas has hostages, which is what they were intended for, they cannot be defeated at this point.
Yes. So that's what's going on there. And another story here, U.S. President Donald Trump has declared stern measures against undocumented migrants or immigrants, but his crackdowns and deportations now might cover even legal migrants.
They have been covering legal migrants, and this has kind of incited this panic across many communities, including a heavy set of Korean American communities and international students.
Okay.
So first we have the Mahmoud Khalil case. So a week ago, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, they arrested this individual, Mahmoud Khalil, who's a green card holder. He's a 영주권자, to deport him. So this was a big issue. Can green card
they
holders be deported in very rare cases? So that is the controversy.
Yes.
So Khalil was a graduate student at Columbia University, originally from Syria, born to Palestinian refugee parents.
Yes.
So he is also married to an American woman, and she is 8 months pregnant. So a lot of situations going on right now. But why was he deported? He was involved in these pro-Palestinian student protests at Columbia. Accounts vary as to whether he was one of the leaders.
Okay.
He says he was only a spokesperson. So why? Again, the Department of Homeland Security accused him of leading activities aligned to Hamas. Hamas is a designated terrorist organization by the United States. So basically, they're arguing that he came out in support of terrorist activities.
Yes.
So legally, green card holders can be deported on national security grounds.
Right.
But they add that the case against Khalil is actually unprecedented.
So that is one case. Another high-profile case includes a medical professor from another prominent Ivy League school who was banned from re-entering the U.S., right?
Right. So this time it's Dr. Rasha Alawi, who's a kidney transplant specialist and a professor at Brown University.
Yes.
So she was deported over the weekend from the airport. She was coming back to the United States after visiting her family in Lebanon. She, of course, has a valid U.S. visa for specialists and highly skilled professionals.
Okay.
So this has sparked a widespread alarm, and especially, and this is a very contentious legal argument, a federal judge ordered that she not be removed until her hearing could be heard, but this deportation was done in defiance of a court order. So the Homeland Security said that Alawi had sympathetic photos and videos of prominent Hezbollah figures, basically photos of individuals like Hassan Nasrallah, who's a deceased Hezbollah leader. She also told customs agents that she attended his funeral while she was in Lebanon, but that she follows his teaching from a religious perspective and that she is very much apolitical. So this goes back to a larger issue. Can airport officials have access to your phone? Well, under the law, any property that a traveler has with them when entering the United States is subject to inspection by the authorities.
Yes. So these are just two, singular cases that we are highlighting. These stories, though, I mean, as you said earlier, really sparking concern about basically anybody who might be a migrant or a legal migrant with a visa or not. But another point of concern is that these deportations happen against court rulings.
Right. So this has been kind of an underlying concern that some pundits have pointed out with the Trump administration, that the separation of government powers may not be as separated right now, because in another case on Sunday local time, the Trump administration deported 238 people to El Salvador, and this again was despite a court order.
Yes.
So the administration said that these individuals are suspected of being members of a Venezuelan gang, and Trump invoked the Aliens Enemies Act for this.
Yes.
This is a law that was enacted in 1789, which says that individuals who are members of gangs or other illegal activities that are not naturalized or lawful permanent U.S. citizens are liable to be restrained and removed as alien enemies. But by the way, the 3 times that this law was invoked was the War of 1812, World War II, and World War I. So after this order was issued, a federal judge, the chief judge of the District Court of D.C., issued a temporary restraining order to block the deportation, but the administration went ahead with it anyways. And then in a very bizarre post, the El Salvadorian president, Nayib Bukele, confirmed that these people have been deported, landed in El Salvador to be detained, and wrote on social media, "Oopsie, too late," with a crying laughter emoji. And this was to a U.S. court.
Yes, yes. Well, that is what is happening across, the world, all around the world. So that's the news for first hour. And of course, we'll check in with you in hour number 2. So thank you, Haley.
See you in a bit.
All right. With that, let's get to some of your messages. So first of all, we have 모나미 who says, 모든 일에 신중하고 겸손하라고 하셨어요. So apparently her parents said to her, be careful and also humble in everything that you do, which is really, really good advice, teachings handed down from your parents as well. And we also have a message from, let's see, 김미라 Waver who says, Good morning. 저희 부모님은 저에게 스스로 찾아서 잘하는 걸 무척 뿌듯해하고 칭찬했어요. 그래서 제 인생은 끌려다니지 않고 굉장히 주체적입니다. So Mira is basically saying that her parents, they instilled in her a sense of independence, doing things on her own. And that's how she has tried to live her life. And 저는 초등학생 2 아이가 있는데 평생 즐겁게 살라고 가르칩니다. Ooh, this is different. So she instills in her 2 elementary school-age children that for the entirety of their life, she wants them to live a happy life. Oh, 즐겁게, enjoying. I think that's important as well. I think it does differ, though. It might differ a little bit with the generations, what kind of teachings and values that we do hand down to the next generation. But nonetheless, all valuable. Let's get to Cat's Pick for today. For today's Cat's Pick, this is a story that I have been following, that we have been following together. Butch Wilmore, Sunny Williams, NASA's astronauts, they have apparently finally splashed down after this unexpected 9-month stay in space. But let's listen to the clip from Sky News Australia.
Astronauts Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore were only supposed to be on the International Space Station for 8 days. They've been stuck there for 9 months. Now, a new crew has arrived in a SpaceX capsule to allow the astronauts to begin their journey back to Earth.
It seems like we do have the first Crew 10.
They've been a world away from each other.
Onishi, the first Crew 10 astronaut through the hatch.
Now, after 9 months, finally reunited. The new crew of 4 astronauts are excited to check in, so Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams can finally check out.
I cannot tell you the immense joy of our crew when we looked out the window and we saw the space station for the first time, returning for a couple of people, very first time for a couple of people. And let me tell you, that is such an amazing journey. You can hardly even put it into words. The ride up on the Falcon 9, orbiting the Earth for the last couple of days, it's been absolutely incredible.
3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff.
The replacement crew arrived 24 hours after lifting off from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida on Elon Musk's SpaceX rockets. But it was last June that Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore docked at the International Space Station. It was the first crewed test flight of Boeing Starliner spacecraft, but technical problems thwarted their return. Back on planet Earth, and Donald Trump accused President Biden of abandoning the crew, but the astronauts said they felt committed, not stranded, and have clearly made the most of their extended time up there.
Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore begin their belated trip home.
Wow, we've been waiting a long time to hear those words. That's the moment NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams finally began their long-delayed journey back to Earth. A SpaceX capsule carrying the pair undocked from the International Space Station early this morning.
And guess who welcomed that capsule, not castle, in the water? Dolphins. Oh, this is coming in live right now from several news sites. Several dolphins welcoming home the astronauts. They're in the capsule still, but the thing is they have finally made it back to Earth. So definitely good news. Cat's pick for today.
Stay tuned. You're listening to Morning Wave in Busan.
It is now time for In the Now. We have Leon here. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. And the sun?
The sun, it's quite cold today, though.
It is.
It was
It's -1.
0 degrees when I woke up.
Oh, really?
Was it -1 when you?
Yeah. Maybe it went up to
1 degree.
0.
Yes.
Thank you. So text topic.
Text topic.
Very important. What values or virtues or teachings did your parents kind of pass down onto you?
Yes.
And then it doesn't have to be the same, but what do you try to instill in your daughters?
Okay.
Something important.
So I know you guys have all been talking about the good, message and theme, compassion. I heard you talk about.
Let's keep it real.
I love my parents, but they were the type where, back then all parents are so busy working.
Yes, yes.
And they kind of built this image for me where all you have to do is study and build everything else. And, and then I kind of indirectly felt like nothing is important. Like I don't have to be independent. 그냥 혼자 공부만 하면 되는 거야 until I went to college. And then reality struck and I was like, I have to be a grown-up. I have to go to the post office myself. I have to create a bank account. Like all these things that were very...
On your own.
Yes, that I could have done if I was grown up as a very independent person, which I was not.
We were dependent, were we not?
I was very dependent, and my parents really raised me up to be a very dependent person. And I don't know, I don't put the blame on them completely because some kids are naturally a dependent type, where some kids are naturally independent. And I say that because I have my own kids.
Yeah, so...
And the one thing that I told myself that I'm gonna teach my kids is to be independent.
Are they?
Well, the funny thing is, they are already kind of very independent. 유치원 때부터 they were telling me 엄마는 내려오지 마. 나 혼자 버스 타고 갈게.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, I'm trying to raise you as an independent kid, but not this early. 아니야, 엄마 갈게. But they're like, no,
it's okay.
I could do it. So I was like, But that's when I realized some kids are born independent and then maybe 내가 dependent type였나?
You're just maybe a needy child?
Yeah, maybe not my parents' fault, but I don't know. But
okay.
That's the one thing that I want for my kids. They have to think for themselves, they have to act for themselves,
Don't be dependent. And it seems like it's already working.
I think they already have that trait, but I think I'm gonna continue to build it for
that's
them.
a good one. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing. And now,
in the now.
in the now. What are we going to talk about in the now?
Yes. So last week we talked about shopping.
Uh-huh.
No, we talked about fashion.
Fashion.
In line with that, can you notice something about my shirt today? Can you see my back?
Oh, it looks kind of
like a. What do you
like a vibe, like an older 90s, 2000s vibe going on?
It is vintage.
Okay.
I actually bought.
Thank goodness. I was like, what if I say something wrong and like
I bought it new at a department store.
Right.
No, it's I bought it at a thrift store in Cheonpo-dong last year.
Oh, really?
Because what we're going to talk about today is thrift shopping, secondhand shopping, which is quite the trend these days among
it is.
those in their 20s and 30s. And this one also, I bought it at a vintage store. Not in Korea, though.
In Hawaii?
In the U.S.
It says aloha.
I didn't want to say Hawaii, but
okay.
in the U.S.
I mean, it says aloha. There's a Hawaiian like girl doing this. How do we know?
So, recently I bought. So, this is kind of like my outfit. I felt like a little bit,
let's see. Can we just see it on? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
너무 약간 빈티지스럽지 않나요?
너무 귀여운데요?
그래서 일부러 이렇게 블루랑 이거 컬러 포인트.
matchy. Yeah, thank you for sharing.
편의점 가는 스타일. Anyways.
No, it's cute. It's cute. School run style. Yes.
So, have you ever been thrift shopping, or have you noticed this trend in your life?
Of course, I noticed the trends, and I have been
with
inside.
Your kids, with your MZ kids.
Yeah. No, I've been inside. And
where? In Busan or in Seoul?
In Seoul when I was visiting number 2.
Okay.
I call them by numbers. Number 2.
Right.
When I was visiting her, and even like back in the day, like before it became like a real trend, like my friends were into it.
Oh.
I was not though, and let me tell you why though.
Why?
I have a story. Okay, we're 진짜 빨리 할게요.
Okay.
So I bought a pair of vintage Lee jeans.
Oh, okay. We can't say the brand.
Yeah, I can't say the brand. And then like I spent a lot of my hard, earned allowance and like, part-time job money. And they were like really expensive because they were vintage.
Oh, you bought it at a vintage store.
Yeah, then in Venice Beach. And then my mother threw them out because she thought they were like
like so old
and not new. So anyhow,
your
I digress.
Heart throbbed after that. Oh, but
so
that's so in trend these days.
I know.
Vintage 리땡 pants. Those are expensive.
I know. 지금도 비싸요. 그때도 비쌌지만. 네. So is that what we're talking about?
Yes,
thrift
that is what we're going to be talking about.
Yes.
Because it is trending. In Busan, also, if you go to, I visited Nampo-dong last year and also Cheonpo, the 거리. There, I've seen a lot of these thrift stores coming up, like the opening up. So it basically is reflective of, how people are showing interest in these kind of secondhand shopping. And so we can kind of also look at, the statistics to really see if there is a rise in sales.
Right?
Yes. So a good indicator of this trend is, I guess, if we look at the rise in sales on secondhand marketplace applications, like we know the carrot thing or, the 중고
country.
So
we try so hard not to say
country. Yes.
맞잖아요, 중국 country.
맞아요. So according to data from Mobile Index, as of last November, 17.4 million used carrot thing.
Yes.
That's up from 16.7 from the previous year. And also for the 중국 country, 830,000 to 910,000. So a lot of people really going into these applications to buy secondhand goods. And Lee Eun-hee, who's a professor of consumer studies at Inha University, says that this surge in thrift shopping is driven not only by high consumer prices that we're seeing these days, but also by like a shift in mindset.
Yes.
Which is, many people now view older items as more valuable. Like the older it is, the more valuable it is. And it's not just, something that we could throw away easily.
Yes. So what are some of the other growing appeals of thrift shopping?
Yeah, so another major factor is, of course, environmental impact of fast fashion. So, fast fashion is known for being so wasteful.
Indeed.
They produce about 100 billion garments each year. And according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, over 73% of these garments actually never get even sold. And they end up in landfills or are incinerated. So I was surprised, 73%. I thought maybe half of them, because there's so many different styles that all these SPA brands are coming out with every other week, it seems like.
And not just and even the high, 그 명품 brand, the luxury brands.
Really?
They would rather burn their stuff than to sell it
because
cheaply.
it's their brand
the
image.
Demand. Yeah, the image.
Also the demand.
Definitely.
It's hard to get the higher the price.
그쵸,
It makes
그쵸.
sense. So this has been, the people are becoming more environmentally aware these days. That's also
true.
another trend. So as people it really encourages more people to buy these secondhand goods. But a difference in the trend these days, though, is that there's what's called a high-end thrift shopping.
I know. I was going to ask you about that because it's not just about going to thrift stores.
Right.
In the U.S., for example, it's like Goodwill, right? I mean, you go there. We can say it's in the States.
Yes.
But it's not just about finding the really cheaper, really inexpensive goodies.
Right.
Versus nowadays, people are going there to find luxurious, good brands, right?
Yes, and so these are the major brands we know, the major brand names. They offer, their vintage collections from the 80s and 90s that we can find at these secondhand stores. And we also see a lot of I talked about G-Dragon last week. I can't help but talk about it because he's always in the fashion industry, We see celebrities like him also wearing goods, vintage goods from back in the 90s and 80s as well. But also there's one other thing. Upcycled goods is also another thing this thrift store. Do you know what upcycled goods is?
Let's explain to our listeners.
So it basically means designers, they take secondhand clothing and they kind of creatively transform them into one-of-a-kind pieces.
Yes.
So it's not just in vintage clothing. It goes through a designer at least once. And so we're talking about, let's say we have a pair of track pants made from a repurposed T-shirt. So T-shirt, you cut it up and then you put it together in patches.
Yes.
And then it becomes a pants. So it's stylish, could be.
And it's something completely different. It's
one
not
of a kind, yes. And it's eco-friendly. So, And the thing is about these upcycled goods, when you think of traditional thrift shopping, it's all about, being budget friendly, like you said.
Yes.
People are used to spending under about 30,000 won per piece. 3만 원 이상 가면은 조금 지갑이 안 열리는 것 같아요.
Right. I agree. There's a certain point where are you
아니면
willing?
약간 10,000원 이하면 더 좋고 한데.
Because you feel I got such a good bargain and it's unique, right?
Yes. But for these upcycled fashion, it's kind of a different league. We're talking about items that can go to 200,000 won.
20만 원?
20만 원.
Right.
Or even 39만 원 for a Levi's jacket that's been decorated.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. 리땡 jacket that's been decorated.
중국 country 했는데 we got to the
Oh, I just messed up all again. Yes. So, despite these high prices, shoppers are drawn to these unique craftsmanship behind these pieces. And another experience, I've been to 성수동 last year.
Oh, so hot.
Yes, it was trendy.
Yeah.
And I was at this major, what do you call 편집 shop in English? Oh, editorial shop. No. A 편집 shop. What is 편집 shop?
A
boutique.
Boutiques, specialty shop. They have lots of different brands.
Different brands.
Yes.
So what I found was so interesting. Sorry for my bad
아니요,
English.
너무 귀여워요.
So I went to a very huge boutique store where I could notice a lot of Korean brands, but on they had a separate corner where they had just these upcycled vintage clothing.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this is so fun. Like,
But not cheap, I'm sure.
That's where I stopped looking. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And
So
then I looked at
expensive.
the price and 39만 원 아니었어. 한 40만 원대도 있었고.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they were like well-known brands, vintage, but
Well,
Yes.
thank you for taking us into this world that some may be familiar with, some may be new to.
yes.
And of course, we look to next week as well, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Everybody, this was Leon with In the Now. And now it's time to wrap up our number one, Itaewon Freedom by UV. Enjoy. I'll be back at 8.
요즘 심심할 땐 뭐해 따분할 땐 뭐해 어디서 시간 때우나 강남 너무 사람 많아 홍대 사람 많아 신촌은 뭔가 부족해 다 알려주겠어 다 말해주겠어 새로운 세상 그곳을 말해봐 음악이 있어 또 사랑도 있어 세계가 있어 나에게 말해줘 배달하는 집배원 물건 파는 판매원 기타 치는 김태원 모두 모여 이태원 배달하는 집배원 물건 파는 판매원 기타 치는 김태원 모두 모여 이태원 이태원 프리덤 저 찬란한 불빛 젊음이 가득한 세상 이태원 프리덤 알려주겠어 다 말해주겠어 새로운 세상 그곳을 말해봐
Your bridge to the world. BEFM 부산영어방송.
아프리카 유일의 한국전 참전국 에티오피아. 6천여 명의 군인들은 자신들의 월급을 모아 부모 잃은 아이들을 위해 보아원이라는 고아원도 세워주었습니다. 그러나 지금 에티오피아는 위기에 처해 있습니다. 끊이지 않는 내전과 기후재난으로 대부분의 의료시설은 파괴되었고 의약품도 부족해 간단히 치료할 수 있는 질병으로 사망에 이르는 상황입니다. 바로 지금이 우리가 에티오피아의 진빚을 갚을 때입니다. 지금 전화해 주세요. 후원 문의 080-993-0119 국제구조위원.
부산의 축제 어디까지 즐겨보셨나요? 과거와 현재, 미래가 공존하는 항구도시 부산. 이곳 부산은 계절을 물들이는 다양한 축제로 늘 풍성합니다. 봄의 시작을 알리는 봄꽃 축제부터 부산의 여름을 만끽하는 바다축제, 전 세계 영화인들이 모이는 부산국제영화제와 새로운 시작의 해맞이 축제까지. 부산의 축제는 우리의 열정을 가득 담고 있습니다. 바쁜 일상은 잠시 뒤로 하고 특별한 시간을 선물 받는 바로 이곳 부산에서 우리의 삶은 축제가 됩니다. 축제로 하나 되는 부산. 여러분은 어떤 축제를 기다리시나요? 이 캠페인은 대선공익재단과 BFM 부산영어방송이 함께합니다.
혹시 지금 운전 중이신가요? 어린이 교통사고 피해자 수는 지난 3년 평균 약 9만 명. 특히 어린이 보호구역 안전기준이 강화된 이후에도 어린이 보호구역 내 사고는 지속적으로 발생하고 있습니다. 스쿨존에서는 반드시 시속 30km 이하 서행, 스쿨존 내 불법 주정차 금지, 차량 출발 전 앞뒤 좌우 살피는 습관으로 어린이가 안전한 도시를 만듭니다. 참, 운전 중 휴대전화 사용은 모두에게 위험합니다. 우리 모두를 위한 교통안전, 나부터 실천하면 모두가 안전해집니다. 어린이가 안전하게 뛰어놀 수 있는 부산. 아이 키우기 좋은 도시는 우리 모두의 미래이자 희망입니다. 이 캠페인은 어린이가 안전한 부산을 만드는 은행, BNK 부산은행과 함께합니다.
Want to be a friend of BFM 부산영어방송? You can chat with BFM through our Kakao Talk service. You can share your messages and photos through Kakao Talk, and you can easily become BFM's Kakao friend by searching BFM through the Find a Friend option. Come share and chat with us at BFM anytime, anywhere for free. Don't forget to add BFM 부산영어방송 to your Kakao friends list.
Man, I haven't got a chance. I call
The time is now 8 o'clock.
Good morning.
Dynamic Busan.
Yeah, you're waking up. Time to shake it up. Tell the world good morning and find out what's going on.
Well, hi there, folks. There's everything from comedy to lively chat to music.
Broadcasting from a room about the size of your closet.
All calls are recorded.
What show is this?
Live from Korea's dynamic city, this is Morning Wave in Busan.
I'm sorry, who'd you say you were?
It is now 8 o'clock. This is News Highlights. Acting U.S. Envoy says sensitive country listing not a big deal. The designation of South Korea as a sensitive country by the United States was due to mishandling of sensitive information and is not a big deal, said the acting U.S. ambassador to South Korea yesterday. The envoy, Joseph Yoon, suggested that the listing by the Department of Energy, or DOE, was not a serious matter affecting bilateral relations, saying this whole thing got out of control. The acting ambassador explained that Seoul was put on the DOE list due to some mishandling of sensitive information that should not have been taken out of laboratories, but stopped short of elaborating further. Constitutional Court finishes Justice Minister's impeachment hearing. The Constitutional Court wrapped up oral arguments from both sides in just 2 hours during yesterday's first and final hearing of the impeachment trial for Justice Minister Park Sung-jae. Acting Constitutional Court President Moon Hyung-bae rejected a request from the National Assembly's legal team to question the minister. Park's defense team asked the court to dismiss the case, citing illegalities in the parliamentary impeachment motion. The Assembly passed Park's impeachment motion on December 12th, accusing him of involvement in President Yoon's attempted insurrection. The court said it would notify both sides about the date of the ruling. Prosecutors seek arrest warrant for 2 presidential security officials. Prosecutors have filed 4 warrants to arrest 2 senior officials of the Presidential Security Service, or PSS, accused of obstructing investigators' attempt to detain impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol. Acting PSS Chief Kim Sung-hoon and Chief of the PSS Bodyguard Division Lee Kwang-woo are accused of obstructing the arrest warrant against President Yoon Suk-yeol, taking unjust personnel actions, and instructing subordinates to delete phone records between Yoon and military commanders involved in the December 3rd martial law declaration. This is a 4th attempt by the police, as the prosecution has rejected the police's previous 3 warrant applications. Gaza ceasefire shattered as Israel kills hundreds of Palestinians. Over 400 people died after the Israeli military launched a wave of airstrikes over Gaza, shattering the fragile ceasefire. Israeli military officials said the strikes targeted Hamas military commanders and political officials. Hamas has accused Israel of attacking defenseless civilians. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says combat in Gaza has resumed with full force, as families of hostages have accused the government of giving up the hostages. Putin agrees to temporarily stop strikes on Ukrainian energy infrastructure. Russian President Vladimir Putin agrees to stop strikes on Ukraine energy targets for 30 days after a 90-minute phone call with Donald Trump. During the call, Putin presented several conditions for a more complete ceasefire, including eliminating the root causes of the crisis. The White House said that the new peace talks will immediately begin in the Middle East. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomed the energy truce, but said that Russia isn't ready to end the war. This was News Highlights. It's time for Wagga Wagga. Haley's back.
Hello, hello.
Yes, yes. And can I share congratulations to one of our waivers out there, because Edom Waiver yesterday actually said that they were going out on a job interview.
Yeah.
And they have shared 취업에 어제 이직 면접을 봤습니다. 그리고 제가 합격을 했습니다.
Oh, already. It usually takes, a couple days. They must have loved you. But why wouldn't
I just want to say, wow.
Yeah.
I love when we share good news.
Yay.
I feel like we're a real family. Yes. I just wanted to share that. Anyway, let's get into our first story. There was pushback against a public daycare center at a Seoul area apartment. What happened?
All right, so this is a story where prepare to be angry, get your typing fingers ready,
Yes.
where character education, 인성교육, is so important.
Okay.
So when I say public daycare, we're talking about 국공립 어린이집. I have no child of my own, but my friends who do, this is like the golden
Holy Grail.
The Holy Grail. They're
Yes.
like, if you get into a 국공립 어린이집, you're set.
Yes.
But
yes.
apparently not. So an apartment complex in 종로구 in Seoul had a private daycare center that was run by a church, from the church. However, the center had 14 children.
Okay.
The apartment complex itself has about 50 toddlers and kids who would be at a daycare age because there are a lot of working parents.
Yes.
However, that daycare center is closing. So 종로구 district office sent an official notice to the Residents Association, 입주자 대표회의, proposing that this private church-run daycare center be moved inside the apartment complex, and the district would take steps to turn it public, which great, let's do it. When can I go? However, the Residents Association, then they took steps according to the rules, the bylaws, and put the matter up for a discussion and a vote. Because in order to make any changes to the shared spaces within the complex, you need a majority yes from the residents.
Oh, so question. What went wrong? What's the problem?
A lot of things. Initially, a group of residents took issue with this process having moved too quickly and there not being a proper input gathering process. That's legitimate. But then things exploded during the public discussion at the apartment's meeting. So some hardliners against this public daycare took it in a weird direction. So they divided people by their income class. And then comments, according to reports citing people who were at the meeting, said, "Are you poor? 거지야? Is that why you want this public facility here?" They said maybe they would be okay with an English kindergarten, which, again, they're not kindergartens, they're private academies, but not a public daycare. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So another comment said that these individuals were concerned about lower income kids from lower income families being able to get into this facility, which I'm assuming this apartment is they deem it to be an expensive one.
Okay.
So they wanted to check with the authorities on whether these lower income families would have priority to get into a public daycare. The opponents even filed a petition calling on the resident representatives to resign. And some of them did, a handful of them did upon pressure.
Oh, really?
And they are even criticizing public officials and filing complaints, 민원, about, again, they were trying to do a good thing by having a public daycare in the apartment.
I'm so curious. What happened next?
Well, the church wound up shutting down the daycare, and then it never went public. So 4 of the 14 families who sent children to that church for daycare, they moved. And partially, of course, convenience, but partially also out of fear of hatred, because if you're getting comments like, are you poor? Then would you want to live there? So the residents say they'll continue to push for a public daycare inside the apartment. And one resident said, a reason that we have such a low birth rate, that many young couples don't want to have children, is because parents cannot juggle work and childcare.
Right.
And having a daycare center where you live would ease that burden. So this person didn't understand why others wouldn't see it that way. So yeah,
I just don't get
character
it.
building education.
For adults.
So important.
For adults,
yeah,
yes.
for adults too. At all ages.
All right, let's move on. Audition programs are kind of like a staple of television these days, but there is an audition program that has a very low age threshold. So what are we talking
Right,
about?
from American Idol to Produce 101, we all love audition programs. However, what about this? A K-pop idol audition for girls who are 15 and younger. That's
that's not the minimum age. That's the maximum.
That's the maximum age.
Okay.
So this is station MBN's Under 15. That's the title of the show. It says it is looking for a new generation of K-pop talent and recently unveiled some of their contestants, as you can see. Yeah. So in the photos, we see the girls, and they are girls, 15 and under, in a full face of makeup, in, sleeveless, shoulder halter tops, crop shirts, posing in front of the camera. In some of the videos, you see them dancing. And by the way, you will see numbers like 15, 11, or 8 next to their names in the dancing videos. That's their age. So 8. Yeah, so it has been promoted as the world's first audition of its kind, featuring 58 girls between the ages of 8 and 15.
I can't imagine the stress.
Yeah, exactly.
For these girls.
And that's why fans have been less than enthusiastic, let's just say, questioning the merits of having children, preteens to young girls competing for public attention, essentially, having them in front of cameras. So reaction has been stronger overseas. I'm quoting a comment. It's crazy to sexually objectify young girls, put them in front of cameras, and have them be judged. And of course,
they're going to be harsh.
They're going to be harsh.
Just for the ratings.
Even the judges, judges might not be harsh, but comments are going to be harsh. And some of the K-pops or any pop songs do have a sexual aspect to them. So are they going to be really strict in filtering those out? Well, let's hope so. One industry insider said that the perception of age is very cut and dry, especially overseas.
Yes.
Some countries see minors under 16 as those that should have complete and absolute protection. So it might be different if the show were, say, to form a choir with these girls. But K-pop process is based on competition and a little bit of objectification.
Oh, absolutely.
So the show does outwardly promote fierce competition. That is in one of their bylines, fierce competition. So do we want that for developing kids?
Well, I think, as parents, you have to decide, but also as a society, if this turns you off, do not tune in.
Yes.
Because,
But then as a society, of course, it's a personal choice, but do we also want our society to be more protective of children in general?
We should always protect children.
Absolutely.
Like, on a personal note, if my daughter were, talented and wanted to, maybe at the age of 15, we could consider maybe, starting that process. But I mean, these kids, these are babies, as Lizzie says. They're babies.
And I mean, there's a whole discussion that's going on online forums about the appropriateness of the whole idol training system
itself, right?
Because sometimes they do get pulled out of school.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do if you don't become the next Ive or, you know?
And speaking of school, we have a message from Edom. It goes back to our original story plus a little bit of this story. 그런 게 많아요. 예를 들어 이제 학교에서 개근상을 안 줘서 체험 학습 등 가족 여행은 결석 처리 안 되는 거였는데요. 그래서 생긴 말이 개근 거지.
Yeah, I've heard
진짜
that.
부자는 성수기인 방학에 다녀온다는 그런 말이죠. So that goes to say, like, you know, about the whole two stories into one about 인성,
the perfect attendance award now being seen as
you're poor.
Does your family not have enough money to take you out on overseas trips?
Exactly.
No. I have words that will get me fired.
Yes.
Let's move on.
We have a couple driving-related stories.
Again, get your typing fingers ready because, yeah.
Here we go. Ready.
Right. Basic rule in driving 101, don't hit anything or anyone.
Oh, gosh, please, yes.
But also, rule number 2, if there's been an accident, don't leave. That's called a hit and run. That's called 뺑소니.
Illegal.
Right. So
you might get arrested.
You have a duty. You actually do have a duty to rescue or save the person that's been in an accident.
Yes.
So a driver in his 50s was found guilty of not doing this. So recently, Jeonju Regional Court found this driver guilty of aggravated hit and run resulting in injury and not taking action after an accident, sentenced to 1 year, suspended for 2 years.
Okay.
So what happened? This accident took place last April. He was driving in Kimjae in Jeonbuk when he hit another man on a bicycle.
Okay.
Number 1, the driver was on his cell phone. Yeah. So hit the
Wrong
bike.
thing number 1.
Wrong thing number 1. He was
Okay.
on his phone. Hit the biker to his right. Didn't realize it, apparently. The bicyclist sustained a fractured bone and other injuries. And the thing is, the driver left. He drove off, but then came back.
Which goes back to when you said he hit the biker but did not realize it?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that.
In court, the driver testified he saw a bicycle had fallen over. So he got out of the car, picked the bicycle up and stood it upright, and then drove off.
Okay.
But then he realized that he had heard a strange sound. And at that point, a lot of thoughts ran through his head. 머리가 복잡했다. So after driving for a bit, he decided to turn his car around and called 119.
Oh. Well, I'm curious. Is there a ruling on this?
Well, yes, because he was found guilty. So the judge said, although the driver did come back, the fact that he did not try to first help the person and didn't take any action constitutes what's called a form of intent. Right? A bit of legalese.
Okay.
미필적 고의, which is recklessness or form of intent. And in law, this form of intent is demonstrated if someone can foresee or predict the possibility of their action, but continues with the action, thereby accepts the potential outcomes. Basically, in normal people terms, if you know you're doing something wrong and you do it, you accept the responsibilities, right? Which is a good life lesson overall.
Yes.
Well, the point is, though, although he came back, he did not help the bicyclist right away, and that constitutes a hit and run, along with 미필적 고의, form of intent. So, point is, don't hit anyone. Don't be on your phone.
Don't be on your phone.
But because accidents happen. I mean, we're not saying, accidents happen, but when it does, help that person. You are legally obliged to.
From somebody who has been in minor like mishaps, like you know when you've hit something.
I know. I've hit, like, for example, I've like scratched my car on the pillar downstairs. It's a whole thing.
Here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You hear it.
You feel it.
Your vehicle is made of metal.
Right.
So when you hit it, it makes the most annoying sound.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nails on chalkboard. Yes. Or Haley's car getting scratched. Next story. Another reckless driver. What's going on?
All right. Driving while reading. I know.
We want to
seriously,
encourage reading, but not
I love
while
reading,
you're driving.
And that's
Come
why
on,
if I
guys.
have a good book, I always take the subway so I can read. Because
not in your
you
car.
shouldn't drive while you're reading. So according to a JTBC report, a middle-aged man in Songpa was cited driving with a book on his steering wheel.
Oh, gosh.
The person who sent this photo said the driver wasn't looking at the road at all.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, they haven't really caught the person, but according to a former police officer who was interviewed,
yes,
of course, some cars have autonomous driving. But even if your car does have self-driving features, reading while driving is a clear violation of a driver's duties.
Sorry, I was just doing the dory the whole time.
Yeah, I
I
just can't.
I always try to look at, all angles of the story. There's no defending this one. Just don't. All right. Lastly, a domestic airline is making changes in its hiring policy. I saw this one.
Positive story. All right.
Yay.
So how flight attendants, 승무원, are selected, it's been a matter of discussion in the country.
Yes.
Right? Because flight attendants, their primary role is safety. But sometimes they are still being treated as service providers and their looks are heavily reflected on
in Korea, yes.
in the hiring process. And even after they get the job, I mean, you see the uniforms, the tight skirts, and sometimes the mid to low heels,
Yes.
and you're like, are you gonna be able to run in those?
I don't know. Are you going to be able to save me?
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to lift me?
Please.
I don't think so.
So
yes.
E-Star, a low-cost carrier in Korea, said they're adding physical tests and emergency response tests. And by the way, that initially surprised me. Like you
did
don't
it
have
it
them
already?
But
Apparently
they will
not.
add role-play missions to see how prospective flight attendants respond to various situations,
Yes.
like subduing a passenger who's acting out and guiding emergency evacuation. The physical will include sit-ups, running, high jump, arm reach, and even your voice decibel. Should I try? I mean,
They said arm reach.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Good point. Touche.
You're good at running.
I know
that.
I know.
Sit-ups okay,
Ugh,
but
just
the
the
arm
vertical
reach.
challengeness is so tough.
Yes.
So an official from the airline said they formed a task force and had expert consultations to bring about this change.
Right.
And hope that this would be a first step in changing perceptions that flight attendants get hired based on age and looks.
I like. And by
I
the
like.
way, I have a class of flight attendants this semester.
Oh.
They're so pretty.
Ooh, but make them go running and yelling.
Sorry.
Yeah. What
Is that all I have to say? They're so pretty.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you for all the Woggly news. We'll check in with you tomorrow. Thank you, Haley.
Have a great day.
And let's get to your traffic and weather. It is now 8:20, and here's your traffic report. There's an accident on 중앙대로 from Samjeon intersection to Seomin right before the Seomin intersection. Also, heavy traffic detected on 만덕대로 from Minam intersection. That's Minam intersection to Mandok intersection. Also slow going on 충장대로 from 중앙동 intersection to the Chungjang overpass. And lastly, traffic detected on 낙동대로 from Gwaejeong to Hadan intersection. It's now 1 degree Celsius. It's going to go up to 9 today. Clear skies, as you can see, but strong winds throughout Busan. Across the nation, this is supposedly the last day of the spring cold snap, with light flurries coming down in parts of Jeolla and Jeju. The daytime highs will go up to 6 to 10 degrees Celsius. Of course, depending on where you are. This was your traffic and weather. And this is a song request from Benny. 오랜 이별 뒤에 by 신승훈.
그대는 오늘도 내 맘속에 슬픈 그림을 그려주려고 소리 없이 다가와 나의 눈물로 색칠을 하네 나에게만 보여주려고 그대는 오늘도 내 귓가에 슬픈 노래를 들려주려고 라디오 음악 속에 남의 목소리를 빌려 잠자만 들어보라고 먼 그리움의 끝에서 난 길들어가고 있어 너를 사랑했던 기억만을 간직한 채로 넌 나를 잊었겠지만 난 기다리는지 몰라 너의 이별이 나의 사랑을 다시 찾을 때까지 언젠가 오랜 이별 뒤에 잊혀진 나의 이름이 너의 맘속에 되살아날 때 아직도 너를 기다리는 나에게 다시 돌아와 나의 눈물이 널 지우기 전에 난 길들어가고 있어 너를 사랑했던 기억만을 간직한 채로 넌 나를 잊었겠지만 난 기다리는지 몰라 너의 이별이 나의 사랑을 다시 찾을 때까지 언젠가 오랜 이별 뒤에 잊혀진 나의 이름이 너의 맘속에 되살아날 때 아직도 너를 기다리는 나에게 다시 돌아와 나의 눈물이 널 지우기
Oh, that was such a good one. Thank you for the request. And I do want to remind you, yesterday, people are questioning whether it was snowing in Busan. It was snowing in Busan, and that's why there may be snow or ice on the ground in most parts of the country, making the roads really slippery today. So especially when you're driving, please drive slowly and maintain a safe distance with a car in front of you. In areas like tunnel entrances and exits and bridges, plus shaded areas and sharp curves can be particularly slippery. So I wanted to remind you, let you know, once again, if you're behind the wheel, to drive carefully. And even if you're not driving, just if you're walking, to take your time today, just in case it might be extra slippery. And now let's get to some of your text messages, your responses. First up from Tommy. He sent in two messages, first regarding his dad and another one regarding his mom. So from his dad, he heard, do your best and wait for the results. The result will reflect what you did. 아버지께서 최선을 다하고 그다음은 그 결과를 기다려라. 그리고 그 결과는 너가 한 것에 이제 결과가 나올 거다. It will reflect what you did. So wise man. And also he said from his mom, it was a little bit different, the advice that he got from his mom. His mom said, his mom did not say things like, don't do this, don't do that. 어머니께서 이런 거 하지 마, 저것 하지 마 안 하셨대요. And that is why I challenge a lot of things. That's really interesting. So by his mom not limiting him by saying 이거 하지 마, 저거 하지 마, he's basically saying that is why he is able to not in a bad way. 뭐 모든 걸 그냥 오케이 안 하고요. To challenge people. But I do imagine 그래도 어머니께서 가끔 등짝 스매싱 하지 않았을까 상상을 해 봅니다. Let's get to 이름님's message. 제가 들은 말씀은 남의 밥줄을 끊으면 안 된다. 그리고 제가 강조했던 것은 사람의 노력은 배신하지 않는다. 라고 하네요. So one thing they heard growing up is this one is difficult to translate into English. 남의 밥줄을 끊으면 안 된다. So basically this means don't mess with someone's livelihood. Right. I mean, that's like really serious. 밥줄이라는 게 someone's livelihood. And then one thing they also live by is this, that, all your efforts do not go in vain. That's wise as well. One more. Leslie, if I can find the message, what she learned, or today's topic, do not fill your plate with more food than you can eat. Do not start eating until everyone has their plate, whether eating in at home or at a restaurant. My grandparents lived through the Great Depression, so absolutely no wasting food. 음식에 대해서 많이 이야기를 하는데요. 낭비하지 말고 음식 버리지 말고 그런 이야기입니다. And now we're going to get to our special interview. I think it's safe to say we live in a world where relationships are often tested by things like stress or even busy schedules, and finding ways to strengthen emotional bonds is really more important than ever. And Professor Jessica Borelli, an expert in psychology at the University of California, Irvine, has dedicated her research to relational savoring, a practice of deeply appreciating meaningful moments with loved ones. I love this idea, and I'm so interested in what she's going to say to us. So the question is this, though. How exactly does relational savoring work? How can we incorporate it into our own lives? Let's find out. Joining us is Dr. Jessica Borelli, professor of psychological science at the University of California, Irvine. Hi, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yes. So first of all, what is this term? I love it. Relational savoring. What exactly is it? And how is it different from simply kind of remembering happy moments? Is it different from that?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. Relational savoring involves deeply re-experiencing moments of positive connectedness to others and really heightening your awareness of the sensory aspect of these experiences and deriving meaning from the significance of these moments. So, for example, someone may savor a time when they expressed love and care through food, like when they peeled and cut an apple for their child and enjoyed it together. Rather than simply thinking about that moment and feeling happy, They may reflect on how they were feeling at the time, how they think their child was feeling, and what it means for their relationship that their child wants to be that close to them. So it's really, really heightening the awareness and deriving the significance from what it means that you got to have that experience.
Oh, well, thanks for explaining it so thoroughly to our listeners today. And from what I understand, your research suggests that, relational savoring can improve emotional bonds. So can you kind of expand on this idea?
Yeah, we've conducted a series of studies testing the impact of relational savoring. And in the majority of our studies, we've compared relational savoring to a control condition, which involves savoring positive moments that don't involve a close connection with another person. So, for example, someone might savor getting a promotion at work or listening to good music, basically anything that's positive that doesn't involve someone else. And what we find when we compare these two implementations of savoring is that both types of savoring improve people's emotional states, but relational savoring is the one that strengthens people's feelings of closeness and improves their interpersonal behavior, like how sensitive parents are to their children.
And that is, of course, so important, being keen on what your child is feeling and experiencing. So why do people then often focus on conflicts or problems rather than what you're talking about, these positive moments in relationships that can often, improve emotional bonds then?
It's such a great question, and it's one of the reasons why I was really gravitated towards developing this type of intervention. It's because as human beings, we're hardwired to be extremely attentive to signs of threat. So when there's something in the environment to worry about, that's exactly what we do. Our focus turns to that topic, perhaps because we want to jump in and fix the problems, perhaps because we're just really hardwired to focus on things that are frightening. Turning your attention to positive moments of connection is a much more effortful process. One that can really only occur when you're not focused on things that are threatening or anxiety-provoking. And it's something that we really need to practice in order to really habitually do.
Yes. And so when we talk about relational savoring in work, I'm sure it differs across cultures, but what about in societies like South Korea? I mean, does this work?
It's a really good question. It's something we're actually actively working on in my research lab right now. We're thinking through cultural differences that could impact the way in which relational savoring is received. What I've been thinking about is that there may actually be greater receptivity to relationship-based interventions in Asian cultures, given that Asian cultures have such a strong cultural focus on familial relationships.
Yes.
Which, for example, you can see in the holidays that are celebrated. For example, ancestral memorial ceremonies. But we've also paid attention to the ways in which people from Asia and collectivist societies express emotion, which is different than the ways in which people from Western societies express emotion. So the type of emotion that they may experience and wish to express when focusing on a memory with another person may be different. For example, expressing or express respect rather than joy. Those are the kind of things that we're thinking about. But we don't have all the answers, and those are things that we're kind of diving into right now in our research.
I see. And, in this fast-paced world, of course, whether it's in the U.S. or anywhere, but especially in South Korea, there is such an emphasis on, education and studies. And then, when you finally graduate, you get into this very, very, stressful work environment where you're expected to work really long hours usually. So how can this improve our emotional well-being, practicing this relational savoring, even in this fast-paced type of society that we live in right now?
Yeah, I think that's a great question too. And I actually think we would argue that, in fact, because of this highly demanding study and work culture in South Korea, it's even more important to engage in things like relational savoring, because more and more people are facing stressors like social isolation because of the pace of work. The benefits of relational savoring might be similar to things like mindfulness interventions in that they provide this kind of intentional opportunity to slow down and reflect in this fast-paced society. And relational savoring in particular can be helpful because we're already surrounded by people, whether they're our classmates, colleagues, or that auntie who runs the food stand that we go to a lot. And practicing relational savoring can help us bring intentionality into our daily relationships and view these mundane, repetitive routines from a new perspective. The intervention is very brief. It only takes 5 to 10 minutes to do. So it introduces really minimal burden into people's already busy days. And focusing on these moments of positive connection, it can enhance relationship satisfaction, meaning, and closeness in our relationships. And in so doing, it improves well-being by helping people in this fast-paced, high-pressure society place emphasis on relationships rather than achievement.
Yes. Well, Dr. Borelli, I really do want to know if there are simple ways or exercises or methods that we can actually practice, put into, our real lives. What can we do? Maybe you can give us some pointers on how to actually practice this relational savoring. And I love the word intentionality, like, putting that back into our relationship. So what can we do?
Sure. I'm going to give you 2 ideas. Okay. One for someone who's more oriented towards writing and language, and one for someone who's more oriented towards visual thinking. So the first one is for someone who's more oriented towards writing. I want you to identify a moment of positive connection you've had in the past week, ideally a time when you felt supported or comforted, or when you provided support or comfort to another person. Write down everything you experienced, starting from the scenery and moving to your own internal experience, like your feelings and your thoughts. Then, just like you're an author writing a book, write about what this moment in time means for you, your future, and the connection between you and the other person. Do this every day for a week and see how you feel at the end of it, and then continue it maybe on a weekly basis.
Okay.
Okay, and the second one is if you're a more visual person, you can just close your eyes, sit back and relax, and pick out a memory in the same way I talked about in the first one. And imagine you're a movie or documentary film director, documenting your special moment between you and another person, and relive these moments from frame to frame, trying to remember every single detail, and again, thinking about the significance for you and the person in your life.
The thought of it, like to savor each like frame, like as it's floating around in your mind, that is something that we're going to leave for our listeners out there, for our viewers, to see if they can incorporate this, whether it's through writing or through visuals. But thank you so much for explaining what this is, relational savoring, and maybe some of our listeners can practice this today. But thanks for joining us today.
I hope so. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This was Dr. Jessica Borelli. We talked about this whole idea of not just, having, being happy in your relationship, but really savoring, especially those moments that you do want to capture and keep in your hearts and minds, right? So I don't know. Are you more of a writer or more of a visual person? But let's try it today, can we? And let's take a song break. This is Let There Be Love, and this is by Laura Fiji, so enjoy.
Let there be you, let there be me, let there be oysters under the sea, let there be wind, an occasional rain, chili con carne, sparkling champagne. Let there be birds sing in the trees, someone to bless me whenever I sneeze. Let there be cuckoos, a lark and a dove, but first of all, please, let there be love. Let there be love.
Get your local up-to-date news from Korea and abroad right here on Morning Wave in Busan with Catherine.
Stay tuned.
It's time for Skills 101. Jennifer's here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, one last time I'm going to ask you our text topic and for our listeners.
What is it?
Okay, so any advice from your parents when it comes to like virtue or like, just being a good person? Like, what did they instill in you? What kind of values? Or vice versa, something that you try to instill in your daughter.
Oh.
And it doesn't have to be the same, right?
You know, it's not really advice. But my mom, she would always say, 그러니까 엄마 말 들으라고 했잖아. I told you, 엄마 말. But it's nothing to do with virtue. She would always say, 엄마 말 들었으면 you should have listened to me.
In Korean, they say, right, 엄마 말 들으면 자다가도 뭐 떡이 생긴다. I thought about that. Some of the Korean ones, like I think of it, I'm like, 자다가 떡이 생겨서 먹으면 체하지 않나? Like it's like so literal for me, right? So anyhow, yes, I know it's not literal, but
yeah, I tell my daughter like, try to decide for yourself. Don't listen to others, because it's very easy to be swayed by other people.
That's true. Whether it's your peers or even sometimes adults too, right?
It's your life. You gotta decide.
인생이야.
맞아요.
All right. Well, let's jump into Skills 101. What do you have for us?
Okay, so let me ask you this:
Yes.
Have you ever heard someone say something like, "Oh, no offense, but 기분 나쁘게 듣지 마세요."
이미 기분 나쁜데요?
네, 맞아요. Just so you know, and immediately felt like something passive aggressive was coming. 뭔가 나쁜 기운이 오는 거 느껴지잖아요.
아니, like you feel it. It's like it's coming.
Right?
Like,
it's not going to be good.
Like the not to be rude, but then the words out of your mouth are probably going to be rude, right?
Exactly. So these are what we call cushioning words, softening words, or softening words. Phrases that soften what we are about to say. 이거를 이제 쿠셔너라고 부르는데요. 뭔가 좀 덜 기분 나쁘게 하기 위해서 하는 장치인데.
Cushion, I like.
Yeah. They are meant to make communication smoother, but sometimes they actually make things worse.
When you think about it, though, it can be very passive aggressive. Some of these phrases that we just tried out.
Yeah.
But I mean, originally, they're supposed to make conversations more polite. Are they not?
Well, in theory, yes. They can be useful in softening criticism or bad news. I mean, in my lectures, I also encourage people to use some cushioning words, softening words.
Yes.
But not always. But if it's used the wrong way, they can come across as passive-aggressive or insincere or even manipulative.
Okay. Well, we need some examples.
Okay,
so here we go.
So imagine your coworker sends you a report. And it's full of mistakes. It can be annoying. But instead of saying, there are a few errors we need to fix, you say, I don't want to be mean, but this report needs a lot of work. Now, even though you try to soften your words, it actually sounds condescending and passive-aggressive.
Now that, we all have a chance to kind of digest that. I think we might be guilty of it. I mean, me included, right? Like, I'm sure I've used that phrase. Like, I don't want to be mean.
I don't want to be
mean. And the
mean.
intention is like, 이거 말을 하긴 해야 되는데, like, you don't know how to say
사람이
it.
되는 건 싫은 거죠.
그러니까. But then ultimately you are, though.
Yeah,
kind of,
you want to be a kind person. You're just implying, well, it's your fault. It's not mine, You're the one who made mistakes.
That reminds me of a time, number 3, she said to me, like, after, she said for like 6 months it bothered her, something I had said. And I'm like, I'm sorry, honey, what did I say? And she said, I said to her, I'm sure you tried your best. 최선을 다했겠지. But she said that really like hurt her feelings. And I was like, really? And I was like, and at first I was like, in my mind I was thinking, 예민해서 그런가? And then I thought about it because I'm such a 대문자 T. Like, I guess to her, it sounded like kind of passive aggressive, like, I'm sure you tried your best, but it wasn't the best, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yes.
So another classic one is,
if you had actually read my email, you would know that. 제가 보낸 이메일 읽으셨으면 아실 텐데. This one is wrapped in frustration, but still sounds aggressive. A better way to say it would be, I mentioned that in my email earlier. Can you resend it? I will resend it to you. Something like that. That's more straightforward, right?
Yes. Umberto says, just say that's trash. The full report. But the format looks good. Umberto. Yes. Yeah. Oh, there are so many examples.
So those questioning words can also be vague and unhelpful. For example, maybe you should try submitting your reports on time. Why maybe? Yeah, instead of like saying maybe. Yeah, so instead of saying maybe, a more direct approach would be, going forward, let's make sure reports are submitted by the deadline.
Oh, that's
clear.
Yeah. It's clear, but it's not mean.
No.
It's direct. It's direct. And it doesn't beat around the bush. And you're not trying to like cushion it too much. I like it.
The key is being clear and respectful instead of hiding behind vague or sarcastic phrases. So here are some tips.
Okay.
Skip unnecessary disclaimers. Instead of no offense, but 기분 나쁘게 듣지 마시고요.
That's such a common one though. No
Just
offense.
say what you mean in a professional way.
This one I think I'm also guilty of. No offense. It's usually to not like saying directly to a person, but like let's say we're talking about another colleague and I was like, no offense, but like I want to say this to her, but I can't.
Yeah.
Like, I probably Haley, I've said that to you, right? Not somebody else, I'm sure. But
yeah.
Right.
We need to be direct but kind at the same time. So instead of maybe you should try, say, I recommend trying.
Right. And people are sending a message like, I like her. I like her. She's like the nicest person ever. How many, you've used this one, right?
맞아요. 네.
그 사람은 너무 좋지만
나쁜 사람은 아닌데.
나쁜 사람은 아닌데. And you know what's coming behind is like
So it's like 나쁜 사람은 아닌데 일머리가 없다. So for example, there's always something negative always that follows.
일머리 중요해요. 근데.
맞아요.
Yes.
And as I think I mentioned this earlier.
Yes.
Like the other day, but use I statements. Instead of you always forget deadlines, say like, I've noticed some deadlines were missed. Can we figure out a plan? So sounds less blaming.
Yeah, because like the always, that's like kind of extreme. I mean, nobody always forgets deadlines, right? I mean, you might miss a few, but not every single one, right? Leslie says like, not to hurt your feelings, or I don't care, but then if you didn't care, you wouldn't be commenting on it. So true, Leslie. So true.
And what's your tone? That's very important. Even well-phrased words can sound passive-aggressive. If your tone is sarcastic or dismissive, 약간 비아냥거리는 그런 톤이 있어요.
And I was telling you off air, like when my roommate says this phrase, it really depends on his tone, right? 알아서 해. To me, that's like the most 저 제일 싫어하는 거예요. So annoying. Because I feel like I start overthinking. 알아서 해라는 게 진짜 정말 나보고 결정하라는 건지 아니면 아니 하지 마. Like I start overthinking it. 알아서 해.
The worst is 네 맘대로 해.
That like if
that's mean.
네 들어가는 순간 I get like really annoyed. Oh, by the way, in our house,
yes.
One word that I really disallow, I really say no. 야.
Oh yeah.
Not just like as we like he dare not say yeah to me because I will not answer. And I always go, "Oh, did you not remember my name?" Like he rarely says it, but even to the kids,
even
to
daughter,
each other, I tell my kids, I'm like, "Don't say yeah to each other. That's so rude." Because there's a name. And you watch these variety shows 맨날 야야 그래. My pet peeve. Ya is not a nice way to address anybody. I don't even say ya to my rabbit.
I agree with you, but my daughter, when I tell this to my daughter, she always calls me 꼰대.
No. No yas, please.
Yeah.
Yes. Anything else we should keep in mind?
Cushioning words should help communication, not hide real messages. So the message should be there. but sometimes it's all hidden, right?
Yeah. Under the layers, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
The phrase often comes across as, I already told you this. Why aren't you paying attention? Listen.
저 맨날 하는 얘기인데, 이거는.
Instead,
every day.
You could say, I just wanted to follow up on my previous email regarding. But I
저
know it's not
학생들한테도
easy.
하고 룸메이트한테도 맨날 어제 얘기했는데 한 번 더 얘기할게요.
맞아요. 저도 합니다. I try not to though, but I always regret after saying it, The small tweaks like this can change the whole tone of conversation.
So I just wanted to follow up on my previous email versus, as Umberto also said, in capital letters, per my last email, meaning like, did you read my last email? Oh, we're all guilty as charged. We are.
That's right. Yeah. Everybody does it, I'm sure.
Yes. So last tip.
Yeah. The best approach is to be clear, respectful, and avoid passive-aggressive language.
Well, we are definitely going to try, but
it takes practice.
We have some messages of people chiming in. And like Tommy says, in my house, my room controller, aka wife, doesn't say, 네 알아서 해, because she knows I'll really follow up on that. 진짜로 한대요. Oh, really? Oh. Leslie says, I noticed you didn't send back your read receipt on that email. Are we all just 꼰대s? I don't know. I don't know.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Right. And then like people agreeing with me. 알아서 해. 저도 그 정말 싫어요. I don't like that though. 알아서 해. Or 네 마음대로 해.
갑자기 생각이 났어요.
우리 같이 안 살 수도 있어요.
I said that to my daughter last week. Because she asked me some questions and she bothered me constantly. So I said, 너 알아서 해 그냥.
So how would you rephrase that? Dun dun dun! Challenge for Jennifer. Okay. So we'll leave it on that note.
Okay.
So to work on our own shortcomings. How about that?
Yeah.
All right.
Do that.
Well, thank you. Once again, this was Jennifer with Skills 101.
Okay, see you next week.
It is time to wrap things up. And yes, let's be better versions of ourselves. Let's try just a little today. I think we can do it. And remember, I know that right now it looks really nice outside if you're in Busan, but it is still really chilly. It is cold in other parts of Korea. Remember, like I said earlier, drive carefully if you're driving because there might be like snow coming down in some parts or leftover snow from yesterday as well. And yes, it did snow in Busan. I took photos and a video of it. So I wish you a wonderful Wednesday. Here is What a Wonderful World by Hunna. So have a good one. Bye, everybody.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shake hands and how do you do, but they're really saying I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow, but they'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I think to myself,
부산의 축제 어디까지 즐겨보셨나요? 과거와 현재, 미래가 공존하는 항구도시 부산. 이곳 부산은 계절을 물들이는 다양한 축제로 늘 풍성합니다. 봄의 시작을 알리는